everyone, welcome. If you just joined us, you're watching Alexis Conran and Friends, and today I'm joined by TV presenter Cherry Healey and solicitor Nick Freeman. Now, first up, we want your calls on this. Should all shops accept cash? Now, we've seen a massive decline in cash use, with most people now using their card or their phone to pay for things. But what do you think? Is it unfair for shops to stop allowing cash to be used on their premises? Or should all shops be forced to accept cash as tender? Then, are bad parents to blame for bad kids? Now, we're asking this because Tory MP for Bury North, James Daly, said that families need stability and that the children in Bury who struggle are the products of what he called crap parents. Is he right? Or are there wider factors to blame for when kids don't do well in life? And we're also going to be carrying on our mission to save you £1,000 in the year. We're tackling different area of spending each day. Today, we're going to be joined by consumer expert Andy Webb from Be Clever With Your Cash. And he's got some brilliant tips so you can slash the price of your phone contract, tackle your subscriptions, and save money on your broadband. You don't want to miss that. But also, we want to hear from you as well. Have you figured out a clever way to bring down your phone, TV and broadband bills? Let us know. Share the knowledge with everyone else. The number is 0207 862 2222. Calls from landlines may cost up to 16 pence per minute, plus any call setup fees, and calls from mobiles may cost considerably more, actually. But we're also on Facebook and Twitter, of course. Search for Jeremy Vine on 5. Use the hashtag Alexis Conran. So now, should shops be forced to accept cash? There's been a massive decline in cash use in recent years. More and more people are relying on cards to make their payments or their phones. And some shops have simply stopped accepting cash. So what do we think, you two? Do you think that we should stick with cash? Cherry, what do you think?
I think that some shops have got to be allowed the right to say, no, we don't accept cash. I have a friend who works in a gift shop along a high street, and she feels significantly safer now the shop has gone cashless. It means that if someone is going to try and come in and nick something, they're not going to attack her because she has access to the till. The labour is down. When she's closing up at the end of the day, it's quicker, it's more efficient for her customers. There's less queues. It's just better all round. I do think that the compromise is shops should have clear signage saying we are cashless, so there isn't an embarrassment. So if someone goes in and they only have cash, you don't get that awkward moment at the till. But I don't think you can ask independent businesses to not move with the times.
Interestingly, for the first time in 10 years, cash use has actually grown a little bit. But look at this dramatic. As a debit card is the blue line. Look, it starts going up from 2011 all the way up. That dip you see there, that was the pandemic when everybody was locked in and couldn't spend any money. But look at the cash declines, gone from just over 21 billion down almost just above 5 billion. There has been a mild increase in the last couple of years. It's gone from 15% to 19%.
Yeah, I was going to say that stops in 2021, doesn't it?
That's right.
So the cash is actually on the increase. It's now almost, 20%, 19% of all purchases, retail purchases are cash.
So do you think shops should be forced to keep accepting it?
I think there are advantages and disadvantages in both, and I think they both complement each other. And I think it's wrong for any shop to say, I'm sorry, we can't do cash. We've got, 12 million pensioners in the country, who are inclined to prefer cash rather than cards. And I accept there are benefits in both. And we've also got the aspect of poverty. You know, people who are really struggling financially can manage cash much more easily, or may not even have access to bank accounts.
Yeah.
And so for them, there's a significant number of people, sadly, who are living in poverty. So there's a massive amount of the population who actually benefit from dealing in cash. What's interesting for me is, you know, I live near Knutsford, and the bank's closed, NatWest is closed, and the cash machines, which used to allow you to take £500 out, reduced it to 400, and now it's 250. And I'm just wondering, is this a move that the banks are behind? Are they trying to create more profit by just saying, look, we'll deal with credit cards, you're not going to have access?
Do you think they do get
Yeah,
profit
because if
from
they
that?
close the banks, they've got employment, they don't have to pay for the premises, they don't have to pay for their staff and all the associated costs, they don't have to pay for the machines, and basically they're controlling our money, what we do with it and how we spend it.
Okay, that's an interesting avenue when it comes to going cashless, because a lot of people I do wonder whether it is a move, as you say, to basically be on top of what people are spending and where, because if you're doing everything on cards, then it's easier to keep track of what people are spending. Let's hear what people are saying at home. Avatar in Birmingham has got in touch. Avatar, good afternoon. What would you like to say?
First of all, Happy New Year to you, folks.
Happy New Year, Avatar.
I think it's down to the individual outlets, really. It's down to them whether they choose cash, card, or both. I used to work in the retail sector,
Right.
and it was back in the good old days. It was mainly cash, and credit cards were with the carbon copies, and you slide the thing across. I don't know whether you folks remember that.
machine that used to sort of get the carbon copy. Yeah.
That's it. However, nowadays it's a heck of a lot easier because I've used it on the tube and everything else, my iPhone, and you just tap it and off you go. It's a heck of a lot easier using the credit cards and the debit cards and the Apple Pay and Google Pay.
Avatar, what about the costs? There was a bank. In fact, it was a pub. Mike Keane was the owner of the pub, and he, from switching to cashless, from stopping refusing to accept cash, he reckoned he saved 15 labour hours from his business by taking cash out of the business, because he didn't have to pay someone to count it all up, take it to the bank, bring it back, do all that business that involves cash. Is that a huge thing in the retail sector?
Well, I'm not in the retail sector now. However, I remember the good old days when you had to go to the bank, and because it used to be a cash and carry, and you're walking back with a shed load of change, like the pennies and 2 pennies and things like that. So if something's 99 pence, then you have to give a penny change, because obviously some people wanted a penny change back. So that was not only a labour-intensive thing, but also a security risk from a cash point of view. And obviously, at the end of the day, you're walking around with a brown paper bag stuffed with money from the day's takings.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a brown paper bag, After. There are other bags.
No.
Something a little bit less surreptitious than that. But Nick, what do you make of that? The idea, and Cherry mentioned it as well, someone who runs a shop doesn't want to run the risk of handling that much cash, walking around with cash. That's a legitimate concern.
It is, of course, a legitimate concern. And on the other side of that, you have the associated costs imposed by using the card. So on one hand, he's saving 15 hours, but on the other hand, then those costs are rising and rising, and they're only going to go one way. So I'm sure the 15 hours is offset by the increased cost every time you use that card.
We should also touch on...
And also, it's good to employ people, isn't it? So, we want to provide employment.
Well, it is,
and
but
if there is no financial benefit, let's keep people in work.
Sure,
then we get the tax advantage.
But businesses are struggling and they're trying to save money wherever they can.
But I don't think they are saving money.
I save money and I'm able to budget more accurately when I use my card, because you've got everything documented, whereas cash kind of just falls out my pocket.
Well,
I just happen to be in a shop and spend it, and then I just don't remember it, maybe. But actually with a card, I'm accountable to myself, and I look through it and I think, oh no, I've done it again.
With regret, so you're not controlling it, are you?
Well, I'm trying to, Nick. I'm trying.
It's the effort that counts. Let's speak to Stephen in County Antrim. Stephen, good afternoon. What would you like to say? Do you think that shops should be told, look, if someone needs to pay with cash, they should have the right to do so, and you should just figure it out?
Absolutely, Alex, 100%. I'm obviously just speaking on behalf of my mum, but she has cash all her life. Yes, she has a card. Yes, she has contactless. But again, to give you that opportunity, sometimes even before contactless came in very, very much so, a card was refused one day. What do you do if you've no money? You go in to buy a paper or a pint of milk. I would like that option. She was in a local supermarket recently, and again, just saw the queue building, and she has poor sight, and just card only, and she went in with full intentions of paying with cash. So you're sort of victimised a bit, if that makes sense.
Do you think though, Stephen, that cash will sort of fizzle out? That perhaps, yes, for older people, perhaps it is tricky to pay with cash. I speak a lot on this show with people who are housebound, and they have help that comes and look after them. And they can only function with cash because they need to give cash to their carers to go out and do the shopping. So there are always going to be complications. But do you think eventually, like Nick mentioned, maybe eventually we are going to have to go cashless?
We probably are. Yourself, I'm a father myself, and I can see now the way it's going. Contactless for everything. Just you want to go in and buy a pint of milk, touch. Yeah. But how do you, example, if you go to a local car wash, at maybe £5 or £6. How do you pay them with a card?
Well, everyone's got. I saw buskers, all the buskers on the London Underground, big issue, everything, all those things. They've got these little touch things which connect to their phones, and you can pay by card.
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely. I suppose that is the way it's going. In the next 5 years, it'll be card. No doubt about that. But I suppose we have to think about that. I've always had cash in my pocket, but it's like everything else. I always like the feel of money. I always did. Yes, you can do both, Alex, no problem. But I suppose that is the way it's going. But it's just there's always there's always opportunities where you still need cash. You know, for example, if anything in the workplace in the past, if you're collecting money for somebody leaving, you can't give your card in, so it's difficult, but I know it's phasing out.
Okay, let's Stephen, thank you. Let's hear very quickly from Christine in Cheshire. Christine, we've got less than a minute. What would you like to say?
I would like to say definitely keep both options open because I'm a full-time carer to my husband and I'm 68, and where I go, he has to go. So if I got a card out, I've already been robbed once in Chester. If I got a card out and I was looking after my disabled husband, then having my card out would cause a problem because somebody could go back and go past and pinch it, like what happened to me in Chester.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about that, but thank you for bringing that up. And again, it's those little circumstances that you don't quite think of where people do need to use cash. And if they've been told, well, you can't, then it creates a big problem. Look, thank you for your calls on this and your messages. Later, we're going to be putting pounds back in your pocket, hopefully. We're going to be teaching you how to save £1,000 over a year. And today, we're going to be taking a closer look at the clever ways to slash your mobile, broadband and TV subscription bills. We're going to be joined by Andy Webb from Be Clever With Your Cash. And he's got some great tips that you can start using from today to get your bills down. So get in touch. Also, if you've got your own bit of advice that you'd like to share with the rest of our viewers, want to hear from you. But after the break, are bad parents to blame for bad kids? One Tory MP has said that the children who struggle in his constituency of Bury North are doing so because they are the product of what he called crap parents. Do you agree with him? Can kids succeed when they've had a difficult start? Or do we need to look at the bigger picture? 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need. Get your calls in now. We'll speak to you after the break. Welcome if you just joined us. Cherry and Nick are still with me. Later, we're going to be continuing our mission to save you £1,000 for the year on your bills. And today, we're going to be focusing on mobile, broadband and TV subscriptions. Consumer expert Andy Webb has a load of hacks that you can put to use today to start saving you money. And we also want to hear from you if you've already managed to haggle a mobile bill, or maybe you've switched to a better broadband deal. Let us know how you did it. Share the knowledge with everybody. But now, are bad parents to blame for bad kids? You can call us on that, 0207 862 2222. Tory MP James Daly, he claims that most children who struggle in his constituency of Bury North are products of what he called crap parents. Now, he added that he wanted children to be able to choose their paths in life, and that required parents to teach them the fundamentals that would help shape their character. Now, it's not the first time that Daly has had a go at parents. At the Conservative Party conference last year, he said, and I quote, "We have appalling parents bringing children up in appalling ways." So what do you think? Do you think it's all down to the parents? Is he right? Is it always the parents' responsibility when kids are struggling? Nick, what do you reckon? I mean,
I wouldn't use the word crap parents.
Right.
I think every parent tries their best. But I think he believes it's true, and there are an awful lot of bad parents. I think every parent has their own trauma, and how they bring up their children is dependent upon how they've processed their own childhood trauma. And if they don't work at it and try and make themselves better people and better parents, they're going to pass those traumas onto their own kids. And that, to a large extent, will affect the way those kids are. So, for example, I believe you should have two parents, two partners, two parents. I think they do a better job. There are too many single parents, but that's not to say that single parents can't do it. But I think the joint contribution of a healthy relationship is of a massive advantage to children. But if you've got, a mum and dad who are, maybe spending the night at the boozer, leaving the kids on their own, giving them rubbish food, letting them play on electric gadgets, you know, and not encouraging them to go to school, do their homework, those kids are going to be disadvantaged. So, you know, it's the input of the parents, certainly for the first few years. But what's interesting is, you know, you say, give me a child, one says, give me a child till he's 7 and I'll produce the end product. But later on in life, you know, there comes a point where you say, actually, I don't think I can blame mum and dad anymore, because there comes a point where you have to, as a child, accept responsibility for your own life and take control and move on and deal with your own issues.
It is interesting, Cherry, because this whole focus on parents and upbringing. I remember last year when the French were experiencing a lot of riots, President Macron said that the rioters were all the products of bad upbringing. This idea that a parent has all that power in how their kid ends up. It seems that we're sort of ignoring any outside factors like the quality of their schooling, their ability to, you know, join youth clubs or things to do. And
I couldn't agree more.
Does that play a part, do you think?
I think that you can just replace the word crap with struggling, and then we've got an interesting conversation. I think James is saying, James, like he's my friend, James Daly, is saying, you know, parents aren't being responsible and they're bringing up children in an irresponsible way. Well, I think he's being hugely irresponsible with the language that he's used, and I expect better, more grown-up rhetoric from an MP. I would be hugely offended if I was in his constituency. I think they're going to remember that when they go into the polling booth.
But really, isn't that a matter of you managing your own emotions, how you respond to what he says? Because he's creating a message, and he's basically saying, I mean, crap is not the right word.
It's not the right
Struggling
word.
is the right word. But it conveys a message, doesn't it? Well, and he's right on that message. He's on the money because the parents aren't doing the right job.
Well, crap is like almost saying that they are choosing to bring up their parents in a bad way. The cost of living, low wages, insecure jobs with zero contracts and inaffordable childcare. Childcare is so expensive in this country. Full-time childcare is £14,000 a year. And that's after tax. But it's inaffordable. So you have people who are working long hours. They're not coming home to see their kids. When they do get home, they're run ragged. Yes, their children are on iPads and gadgets because... So actually...
There's just excuses. These are excuses.
No, they're real responses to real problems.
You see, I disagree. I think you don't need a lot of money to be a good parent. It's not about having money.
It does help. They're having resources when you're parenting is...
Yeah, but you have to have values. You have to have values. You have to have boundaries. And if you say to your child, you can be on your iPad all day and you can eat rubbish food, that they're not boundaries that are going to help the child.
And that can happen in wealthy households or poorer households.
Of course it can.
But when you're talking about what Cherry's saying, struggling parents, so people who, for example, have to work 2 jobs, we know that...
Well, they're making a choice. They're making a choice.
Hang on, they're making a choice of working 2 jobs?
Yes, they are, because what they're doing is they're saying...
But what if they need to work 2 jobs in order to put food on the table?
I don't believe that's so.
Or pay the rent.
I don't believe
that people are out there?
I think they're prioritising money over the welfare of their children. And I think there's a balance. And of course they need money. I'm not disputing that. But what I'm saying is you have to balance what's more important, bringing your child up
But what if you can't afford to bring your child up or keep a roof over their head if you don't work 2 jobs in order to bring in the money? We know that a large proportion of children in poverty live in working households. These are people who are working and are still in poverty. So what I'm trying to get to is if a parent has to work 2 jobs, therefore that means that they're out of the house and an abnormal amount of time, then is it fair to blame them for the fact that their kids are growing up essentially without that sort of full-time care from a parent?
Well, if they must do that, I still think you can put boundaries in place.
Right.
It's not an excuse for saying to the child, look, mummy or daddy or whoever it is out all day working, so you can do what the hell you like. I don't think that's acceptable. I think a good parent would say, look, unfortunately, let me explain why I'm not here, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to do your schoolwork. I want you to eat healthily. I want you to do some exercise. You can't just jettison all these things that are good for children because mummy or daddy is away. That's the point I'm making.
Let's find out what people are saying at home. Christine in Middlesbrough. Christine, what do you reckon of those comments? This idea, there's an MP saying that the bad behaviour of kids in his constituency are down to crap parents.
Well, hello everyone. Happy New Year. And may I say, he's right in a lot of cases, unfortunately. I mean, there's good parents, there's bad parents, there's good single parents, there's good parents, mum and dad, mum and father. But the irresponsibility that I see around me, where I live now, The children look to the parents swear, the parents don't have any respect for the law, they don't care, they expect everything given to them on a plate, they don't believe in working. One generation leads up to another, and they don't blame the cost of living because they have the money. If they choose to spend it on other things and food for the children see those examples and follow suit.
Christine,
so there's good parents.
Can you give me an example of what you've seen? Can you give me an example?
Well, for just teaching a child the basics, I'm 75-year-old and I'm walking up the road with shopping bags.
Yeah.
I'm on the pavement. All of a sudden I hear, in a very loud voice, "Move!" I didn't believe for 1 minute it was about me. I carried on walking. All of a sudden, this child of about 10 rushes past me. Then a girl of about 7, his sister, barges into me. They're both laughing. The mother and father follow them, just look at me, and they go into the pub for the dinners. And I just said, "Where are the manners of your children?" And they just gave me a dirty look. Not, "Excuse me, please, move." And that's the respect you get of children who learn it off the parents. Not all parents, but unfortunately a lot. There's no respect for age, for law, and the children are following suit.
Christine.
Unfortunately, it's sad.
Yeah, very sad.
True.
Very sad. Christine,
but it's true.
Christine, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. What a terrible experience.
Well, I think she's nailed the argument. That's exactly what I mean. There's no cost implication there, is there?
No.
They're off to the pub. And that is just, I mean, what would you do if your child, I don't know whether you have children, I know what I'd do with my kids if they did that. Well, just wouldn't happen because I'd kill them. Joking.
All right, let's speak to Robin in Gloucestershire. Robin, what do you make of this? Is it always down to the parents?
I think inevitably, really. I mean, I've had the experience of an inadequate parent. Later on, saved by a foster parent, who I will always call my real mother. The idea that the biological parent is always the real parent, nonsense.
Yep.
But I do think the abuse going on, it's got worse and worse and worse. Somebody I know who teaches, who's had the most horrendous abuse, I can't repeat on here.
Please don't.
And nobody stops them. And even when a friend's son was the behaviour was so disgusting in a local pub that they told them to leave. The father then goes round the next day and abuses the owner of the pub and calls him a word I can't use. So he's banned as well. I mean, there is a kind of... Also, the absentee parenting really worries me. When in public places, the children just run around without any parenting whatsoever, running between the legs of waiters,
Robin,
causing endless trouble.
What do you think it is? Because it's not just the kids. We've been hearing, there was this incredible story that Jeremy covered on his show earlier today about a theatre goer watching Hamlet and then opening their laptop in the middle of the show to check emails. I mean, that's just lack of manners. And what we heard earlier from Christine, again, a lack of manners. What's happening to our society? Is it because it seems to be a wider problem?
It's a huge problem, yeah. And I think it's probably a lack of, I don't want to sound too therapy-minded, but I think there's some levels, there is an arrested development. Some people seem to stay emotionally around 7 or 8 years old, and I mean that. And they're totally inadequate as a person to parent anybody. And so the children are left with no sense of who they are, no sense of their own respect, and hence no respect for anybody else.
Robin, thank you. I mean...
Do you think we should enforce parenting classes? They did used to have them, and I mean... You know, we have courses when you get married and you obviously have to do a driving test. But there aren't any courses, you know, when you get...
Parenting classes.
Maybe you should have parenting classes. I don't know.
I mean, I know we tried to build a case of, look, a lot of people are struggling parents but I can't help but sort of go back to even people who have struggled a lot. There are manners, basic manners that you value. I think values is the right word.
Values, respect, and it's lacking from our society.
So why? But why is it lacking?
As a society.
Why is it lacking? Where has it gone?
Because we've got look, we have very few cohesive family units. They don't exist anymore.
What do you mean by cohesive? I mean,
Well,
I'm a single parent child. I grew up with just my mum. I don't feel like I lacked anything.
No.
I had everything I needed. I was loved. I was cared for. I was told right from wrong.
You were provided with a value set.
So it's not really about this.
It's not the structure.
Because
I think the structure has something to do with it, doesn't it?
A peaceful single-parent family, hopefully where two people are co-parenting in a good way, is better than being under the roof of warring parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
100%.
So I think it's more about... it's not really about the stability. I mean, someone from the New Conservatives, where James Daly's a member, said, we want more family values, we want mothers to stay at home.
Sounds like Miriam Cates.
Please no, right? That's not where we are at.
But
let's not go back to
hasn't society broken down? We've got lawlessness.
But in what way?
Well,
we've always had that. We've always had
like
lawlessness.
10-year-olds pushing past an old lady with the parents behind, not being reprimanded by the parents. Is that right? No, I don't think we have.
I think it's so easy to say we come from a broken society, but I think we've actually developed. We've got better.
OK, let's squeeze in a few more calls. A lot of people wanted to have their say on this. Ian in Murray. Ian, good afternoon. What would you like to say?
I would just like to add that what he's saying is totally wrong. We raised a son and a daughter, both around a year in age difference. My son is very successful, lives in Malta. My daughter, when she turned around 14, she absolutely lost it. And she preferred the company of the bad girls in the area where we lived. No matter what we tried, we couldn't pull her away from them.
So do you think that there is a limit to what the parents can do? You can only teach right from wrong, which you obviously did with your son, and you assume that you brought up your daughter in the same way, but there are circumstances beyond your control as a parent that can lead your child astray.
Definitely. My two kids were very well raised. They had excellent manners. They were both quite bright at school. They wouldn't excel, but they were both bright children. And I just don't know what went wrong with my daughter. She's now 43 years old. At the age of around 16, she took to drugs.
How's she doing now?
She appears to be okay. We haven't seen her in around 5 or 6 years, but she appears to be okay, but we don't know for sure.
OK. Ian, thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for sharing your experience. And I think it's an important one because we see, particularly as well with social media and how important that is to young kids' lives, that there is a certain amount the parents can do, but then you've got influences of kids at school, of social media.
There comes a point, doesn't there, where actually it becomes the child's responsibility for how they lead their life. And you cannot blame mummy or daddy anymore.
I think your responsibility is to give them as much love as possible.
You give them all the qualities you can, and then it's down to them, isn't it?
Let's very quickly hear from Graham, who's been waiting to speak to us from Aberdeen. Graham, I've got a little bit of time left, less than a minute, but what would you like to say?
Oh, I just say very good Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Graham.
Panel. I grew up with an outside toilet. If I wanted a shower or a bath, I had to go to see my auntie. I was a single chap. I do blame bad parents for not teaching their kids manners, decent manners. You know, how to hold doors up for elderly people, etc., etc. Why can they not do that? You know, it's quite incredible to me. As I say, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, outside toilet, linoleum floors when I had to go to school, when the winter came in, the windows were always frozen up because they're wooden windows. But yet, I still know how to look after or how to treat elderly people with respect. What's wrong with that nowadays?
Graham, thank you. A great call to finish on. Thank you, Graham. Thank you all for your calls on this. Really, really fascinating and quite sort of alarming of what's happening at the moment in our society.
All the values are free. All the stuff we're hearing, and everyone seems to be very consistent. The sort of manners, the respect, the lawless, the behaviour, to respect society, respect people.
I think it would really help if our MPs didn't use bad language.
That's just an irrelevant excuse.
No, it's not irrelevant. We need people to look up to and to have examples set to us to how to behave. So if our MPs are going around calling people crap, what does that say to society? We say society's broken.
You can't use that as a legitimate reason for kids pushing past an old lady.
Certainly not helping.
It's nothing to do with it.
I've got to go to the break, so we've got to have to end it there. Look, after the break, we're going to be continuing our mission of saving £1,000 over the course of the year on your bills. We started yesterday with energy bills, and we slashed just over £250 off them. And today, we're going to be joined by consumer expert Andy Webb to tell us how we can all save on our TV subscription services, broadband bills, and mobile phone bills. Remember, we want your tips too. Have you figured out a good way of saving money on your phone bill or reduced your subscription services? What did you do? How did you do it? Let us know. 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need as well if you have a question for Andy. We'll see you after the break. Welcome. If you just joined us, Cherry and Nick are still with me. And now we are continuing our mission to save you £1,000 over the course of the year by slashing your bill. So each day this week, we've been looking at different areas where you can make £250 worth of savings. Yesterday, it was energy bills. And now Andy Webb from Be Clever With Your Cash is here to show us the tips that you can try and save £250 from your broadband, your phone, and all your subscriptions bills. Andy, lovely to see you.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in. Now, can this be done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to knock this out of the park.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. And some of it will take just a couple of clicks as well. So this is hopefully some relatively simple ways to make some money.
All right, we're ready. I know these guys have got some questions as well because they are also consumers who want to save money on their bills. So let's kick off. What are we looking at first?
Broadband.
Broadband.
Interesting stat for you. 35% of people are currently out of contract when it comes to broadband. And this is big because that means they've got all the power when it comes to finding a new deal, finding some lower prices, because you can just walk away if you want to. So have a look on those comparison sites, see which deals are out there, find a low price. But don't just take the lowest price that you find, because then take that info that you've got, get in touch with your existing provider, because you can haggle. You can
go back to them.
Go back to them and see, they might match it, they might even beat it. It's worth giving it a go. It's relatively simple. You can do it on chat, you can do it on the phone, lots of ways of doing it. If they don't, well, then you can walk away. If they do, save some of that hassle of, swapping your router out and things like that.
So find out if you're out of contract, and if you are, switch, take that price, go back to your original provider, say, look, this is what I've been offered, can you match it? Yeah, and move away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends how much you're paying right now, how much you can save, but I wouldn't be surprised if like 85 quid a year could be definitely a sort of ballpark figure you could be looking at. When those deals, when you first sign up, they're quite cheap, but then your contract expires, your prices go up. New deals at a lower price. So it's a really good one to start with.
OK, so we kicked off. That's a good amount. That's 85 quid off your bill if you're out of contract. Nick, I know that you've...
I've got a problem.
I've got a...
Jerry might think I've got more than one problem, but a problem that maybe you can help me with. I've got broadband. I'm with BT. They guaranteed a certain number of, is it gigabytes or whatever it is, and we just have so you're watching Netflix, and literally every night the thing goes round and you've got to disconnect it.
So your speed is not great.
My speed, and it's all, that no one seems to be able to get it sorted, and it comes from me. So I've got another year left with this contract. Would your advice be to sort of say, look, I'm severing this contract because you're not fulfilling your conditions? What should I do? Because I'm throwing money away and I'm not getting what they promised.
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, if you aren't getting the speeds that you've been promised, then Ofcom, the regulator, they've got rules that say they let them know, and they've got 30 days to fix it. If they don't fix it in 30 days, then you can leave penalty free. So it's really useful for people at home in this situation. I know you've already across this stuff, but that's a really good exit, because otherwise, if you try to leave, you're going to get charged quite high penalty. So if the speed isn't good enough, a great way to get out.
How many chances do you give them? Because I've done that.
30 days. 30 days.
And then they sort it, and then it goes off again. Do you have to keep going back?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that's the kind of thing I would be putting a complaint in then and try escalating it and just seeing what you can get, what information you can get. And then once you get this, you do exit and you do go look around, don't just, go straight to a different provider. There are some extra savings you can get. So don't always do this, a really good extra step. Cashback sites, incentives.
So that's our other tip when it comes to broadband. That's monitoring your speed. If you're not getting that speed that you require, then they've got 30 days to fix it. If they can't fix it, then actually that means that you can get out of your contract penalty free. There's one more tip you have for us.
Yeah, so just sort of talking about that one just now as well.
Okay.
There are some great ways to get a little bit extra once you've found that lowest price.
Yeah.
It could be, say, cashback sites, but sometimes these websites, these providers, they'll go like, here's a prepaid credit MasterCard, that card that you can get with like 100 quid extra, or maybe it's a free smart speaker, all these little extras which can, again, bundle together, make your savings even bigger. So there's definitely a lot you can be doing. You have to be out of contract or able to get out of that contract, but once you can, big savings. I reckon more than 85 quid, but that's a good starting point.
All right, so that's brilliant. Ask for incentives, get them to work for you, basically, monitor your speed, and by switching, that's a saving already of £85. No expense spared on this show. We've got the ka-ching sound. Right, let's move on, actually, to mobile phone contracts, which is another big one that a lot of people sort of, I suppose, is it the same thing being in and out of contract? Is that one of the things that you need to watch out for?
Yeah, again, with all of these things, once you're tied into a contract, unless there is a way you can get out of it, and it's harder to do that, then you're locked in. So make a note, any of these things, broadband, mobile, anything we talk about, if you're in contract, make a note of when it expires, because that's when you can start getting some of these savings. It's really, really important you do.
Okay, but you're starting here up. Your top tip is piggy backing.
Yeah. So
and that's worth 120 quid. I have no idea what it means.
It's a really interesting one. So you might not be aware of this, but there's only 4 mobile signals out there, 4 networks: EE, O2, Vodafone, and 3.
Yeah.
But there's dozens of providers. So how does that work out? They're doing something called piggybacking. So those other networks, the smaller names, they're using the main signals. So for example, giffgaff uses O2, Smarter uses 3, Leica Mobile uses EE.
Right.
So if you are happy with your signal, you're worried about switching to a different provider because you don't want to lose reception at home or whatever it might be, you will be able to find a different provider with the exact same signal because they are piggybacking. And I had a quick look this morning, like a little 5-minute search, and I found on O2's website right now, 25 gig of data for £20 a month. giffgaff, who are exactly the same signal, exactly the same amount of data, but for £10 a month.
Wow.
So that's your 120 quid. And that was just like a 5-minute search. There are so many more networks you can do this with when you're hunting around and looking for these savings. So it's a great thing to be doing.
So I'm with O2.
Yeah.
And I pay £65 a month. And I think that's for my phone and my daughter's phone. She's 14. And that seems so high. Yeah. And I'm, when you're busy, and every time I see it, I go, God, that's so high. But I don't know how to rectify it without going through the faff, because what I like is that when you go to O2, you can get through to someone. So I like the service, got no complaints with the service, but I do think it feels high.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, so service-wise, that might change. One of the things you might get at these lower paying tariffs is, a couple of companies is not quite the same.
But like, how often do I speak to O2? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Not that often.
So you can, go and ditch it for another one, keep the same signal, that's absolutely fine. Or if you do want to stick with those big providers, maybe another route is to go via a third party. So comparison sites, they'll often have lower price deals.
Oh, I see. Okay.
With the big guys as well. And then you get access to some of those extras, like the rewards things that come with it as well, and maybe that customer service if you ever did need to get in touch with them. So there's all these ways, rather than going directly to the big guys, shop around for piggybacking, or potentially even just look at ones which are other ways of getting deals.
Great. Okay, so piggybacking, that's going to save you £120. What's your next tip?
The next one we'll talk about here is to be aware of roaming. So when we overpaying for data, okay?
Overpaying for data.
This is a big one. So on your bills is, it's so easy to get upsold on data, isn't it? Some people think I've got unlimited data because I'm using it on my phone all the time, or even 250 gig, even 30 gig. For most people, that is well over the odds. You do not need that amount of data for most people. If you go onto your app, on your account, you should be able to see exactly how much data you've used. And I think a lot of people would be really surprised how low that is. For most people, 8 gig is going to be absolutely fine. And if you are changing your deal, your SIM deal, from something which is a really high data allowance to something much, much lower that you need, then again, the savings here can be huge. So have a look at it. And if you are still thinking, well, no, I'm on like 15, 20, are there ways you can reduce it? When you're at home, always connect to Wi-Fi, download the movies when you're on Wi-Fi, things like that, and really bring it down.
You can reduce your data. And actually, they're very good. And usually the app or your bill will tell you how much data you've used, so you can get an average of how much you're using. Let's look at your last tip before we move on. Phone contracts, there's roaming charges.
Yeah, so this is a big thing because it used to be included, didn't it? Before Brexit, it was the law that everyone had to have free roaming in Europe. So you can use your phone as you would when you're abroad. That's changed for particularly some of the big networks now. And if you go abroad and don't do anything about it, that can cost you hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, and some of these data charges can really, really rack up. So if this is a big thing for you, if you're overseas a lot, look for one where it is included, because that extra £1 a month that it might be versus another network could pay for itself based on those charges you could otherwise be faced with abroad. So that's a really, really big one to think about as well.
I've just come back from France. I've just had a week. And it's £3 a day.
Yeah.
I think it's £3 a day, or £15. It works out about £3 a day to use your phone to pay for your rent.
And that adds up.
You put it down as a Brexit benefit. I had to go there. I'm sorry.
Ouch.
The last one, and I think this one I've certainly been using for the last 2 or 3 years, which is your advice of going SIM only. So don't get trapped in that 12-month, 24, 36-month contract.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there used to be the way, didn't it? When we first all got phones, we were upgrading every time the contract finished. You got a new handset and then came and did it again and kept doing that. Phones are going to be fine beyond a year, 2 years. So keep your phone and just get a separate deal just for the minutes, the text messages and the data. Just pay for that and it will bring your bill down massively.
I think that's exactly the mistake that I made. Yep. That's exactly where I went wrong.
SIM only is a very, very
every
good
6
way to
months
go.
or something.
So we've got overpaying for data, look out for that. We've got the roaming charges, very important, especially if you're travelling. SIM only is going to save you a lot of money. And piggybacking, which I had no idea what it meant, but use the cheaper companies that use the same network that you're already on, and a saving of £120. There we go. Now, let's look at the subscriptions. Now, of course, this has gone sort of a little bit crazy now because of subscriptions, TV subscriptions, all sort of services subscriptions. There's loads there. What's your advice?
Yeah, so 49% apparently of households are spending money on subscriptions they're not even using. That's a huge amount. That could be about £14 a month. But I think a lot of that is going to be, as you say, those film and TV streaming services. Because there are just so many of them, which is great when you want choice of what to watch. But each time you add one on, those bills are getting higher and higher and higher. But there is some good news from this, is because you're not, with most of the time, you're not tied into long contracts with these services. So my top tip here is to, as you've got there at Spring Clean, ditch all but one of those TV streaming services. Get rid of them all. No, we can. You can do it. Don't worry.
So like, what do you mean, like Netflix or?
Yeah, so Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, there's Disney Plus. There's so many of them now.
Disney Plus, yeah.
You can, but if you've got them all, how can you actually watch more than all at once?
Can you pick them up? Say if you've got the long-term holidays, can you go, I'm going to do Disney for all the Marvel?
Do you let your children just sit in front of a television all summer holidays? You are the sort of parent that Mr. Daly was talking about.
Right here. The more the merrier. But can you pick them up and put them down?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because unless you've signed into a specific deal with them initially, most of them are 30 days. So ditch them all, apart from one, and then binge it. Just watch everything on that one service, and when you've completed it, cancel it.
Someone comes in and says, "Have you seen this?" Or it's on Amazon. I've only got Netflix.
So maybe you want to balance it slightly, but let's say you are saving £8 a month by doing this. You're cancelling 1 out of 3.
So do a spring clean, and maybe just keep the one that you're sort of currently watching, and ditch the others.
Watch everything.
Watch it. Finish that, and then the next one. Let's have a look at what you're saying. Is sharing is caring. What is that?
Well, I mean, we all used to share people's passwords, don't we? We all kind of been doing that. Netflix clamped down on it. You can't do it. Netflix.
I can't hear you.
But
sounds like a conspiracy
you
here.
can do it officially, right? And Spotify's a really good example here. So let's say there's 2 of you in a household. You're both paying $10.99 for Spotify Premium. You can get something called Spotify Duo for $14.99, which is 2 plans. So that in itself is saving yourself £84 a year, and you're not sacrificing anything. You're just putting it on one account. They do a family plan, which has more accounts. In fact, some of the other streaming services also have that family plan. So a great way to kind of legally share your stuff but save some money. So that's a top one to think about.
Okay. And the final one?
Final one. Well, what do you've got a choice? Which one do you want to go for? Well, let's go for Scrap Sky, shall we? Let's do that one.
Oh no! Oh no! Don't say that.
Now, why would you scrap Sky?
So when you sign up for Sky, you are paying a huge amount and being locked into a long contract, probably 18 months. And people are, but I want it because I want these channels. Most of the time, people are just watching normal terrestrial channels, right? That's what most people are watching. But if they do want to watch the Sky shows, they might not be aware you can watch most of those on something called Now TV. And that is another streaming service where you can cancel every 30 days. So if you want to, right, I'm just going to get Now TV for the entertainment for 30 days, watch those Sky shows that I want to watch, catch up on them, then cancel it. You know,
like Sky Sport, would you get that on?
That's more expensive, Sky Sports, about 34 quid. But again, if you only had that occasionally, not the whole season, and they're often deals, like I've got it for 20 quid a month right now, that's a lot cheaper than that, plus all the other Sky things bundled together. Big, big, big savings.
I've just signed up to Sky. That's brilliant. Where were you 2 weeks ago?
So we're out of time because there's been so much on here. So actually putting everything together, I can tell you, your broadband contract, £85, the piggybacking as well, all that's £120, and the subscription, spring cleaning, all that together, you've managed to bring that total of savings to £301.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
Thank you.
Loads more we could do.
Wow.
Thank you. That has been fantastic. Well, look, that's it for today. Thank you to Andy Webb. Tomorrow, we'll continue saving £1,000, discussing all things insurance. So join us then. Massive thanks to Cherry and Nick. Jeremy's be back at 9:15 tomorrow morning, and I'll be back at the same time. See you all tomorrow.